Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
It's the left versus the right. Debate. Heavyweight slugfest.
Left, 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 right, left. This is the left versus the right. David Paterson here on the left, and supposedly on the right is Lionel. But I used to listen to Lionel's show right here on WABC 77 here in New York, and I never saw you as on the right. I saw you as reasonable, capable of getting very excited.
Wait a minute, why can't somebody in the right be reasonable?
Passionate about
That's
things.
like saying, I never saw you with the left. I thought you were lucid, not insane. See, you're starting off with that already. But listen, for the time being, you know, it's you know what it is? It's like a shortcut. You know when you're on your computer, you push this thing and it's a shortcut. It's like,
yes.
It doesn't really mean what it is.
So let's start off with something that happened about a week ago last Friday, and it was that President Trump ordered the military to go and claim a lot of land in the Southwest, some of it in California. I didn't think he'd miss the opportunity to do that. And some of it, I think, in Arizona or Texas or around these areas. And the idea is that by doing that, it would open the door for perhaps harboring migrants that they don't know what to do with, or using it for these types of purposes. Now, I always thought that using the military for issues within the United States was unconstitutional.
Posse comitatus.
Yes, exactly.
Is that what you're getting at, Paterson?
That's what I'm getting at.
I know what you're doing.
I want to know what you think about it.
Well, it seems to me years ago when the great President Eisenhower decided to use, the 82nd Airborne or the 101st to help enforce desegregation and integration, people lauded it. I mean, you can federalize it to an extent. Nobody said, wait a minute, hold it. And I understand what you're saying because I'm very, very careful of that because law enforcement protects, individuals. Their goal is the Constitution. The Army doesn't. There is no such thing as probable cause,
right.
Reasonable suspicion. So I appreciate your concern, but I'm finding it, maybe as a lawyer, both of us, I like the fact that the president is exploring new ways to consider, are these incursions almost warlike, military-like? And you might say that's ridiculous, but I appreciate the fact that he's trying to do something novel and unique. It's not to say it's correct, but I give him an A for novelty.
Well, what I've got to say is that, I've been a critic of his at times. I knew him pretty well when I was governor. He would talk about people that worked for me, and he would say, last time I talked to Governor Paterson, he said he doesn't even know why he hired this guy. Mm-hmm. And these things just didn't actually happen, but they livened up my day from time to time. But what I would say is I have really liked his creativity. I like the way he hit the ground running. By 6 o'clock on the afternoon that he was sworn in on January 20th, he had signed more legislation than his predecessor had probably in the last 9 months. And I like people like that. And I also like people who will try things sometimes even when they don't know if it's going to work or not. But it's an opportunity, and a whole lot of great decisions came from an individual letting themselves go out on the limb and trying to do something. So I agree with you.
Well,
there.
I guess we're agreeing too much. So I'm going to put an end to that right now because it's no
great.
good. But I'm going to give you a terrible example, but you will be shocked by its limpidity. in pellucidity when I give you the idea. Years ago, there was a number of people who were dying because of C. diff and all these terrible lower GI problems. People, it was awful, E. coli imbalances. And somebody said, a doctor said, I've got an idea. Now work with me. I'm not trying to be gratuitously gross here. But he said, why don't we do a fecal transplant? Now just hear me out. Let's take somebody who doesn't have this problem and they said, that is the most disgusting, that is the craziest idea in the world. That is awful.
And that is a fecal transplant.
It made so much, it saved lives. And nobody thought about that. That's Trump. He's a fecal transplant. He does things that you think, what? Where would you, how can you, why would you think of that? And it works. And it saved lives. David, we're under attack right now. And I don't even know if it's left, right. I don't know if it's the deep state, the intel state, the police state, the radical left, the shadow government. I don't know who these people are. But all of a sudden, the left that I was a part of, I think at one particular time in my life, they've gone nuts. Yeah. Can you imagine if we brought our parents back and they said, what have I missed? Did you hear about the gender? What? Did you hear about war? No, they didn't do that. Yes. So what I'm saying is these are strange times, and strange times involve sometimes strange, much like my terrible analogy, but it's true.
Now, to that end,
interesting pun.
The president has also, right now, as we speak, brought a lot of military into the Indian Ocean. He's got 6 B-1 bombers in the Indian Ocean right now. He's talked to some of the leaders over there. He apparently did not talk to Congress or the Armed Services Committees in the Senate or the Assembly. And there's a little part of me that was once governor, and I know that if I could have done a few things without having to consult with certain people that I worked with, things would have gone a whole lot better than they did. But what I'm saying is there a sense that he's feeling that there's trouble coming to this country or to any of our allies?
I think obviously, well, again, trying to understand Trump. Somebody explained this years ago, again in a medical theme. They were explaining an EEG was like standing outside of a stadium and trying to guess the score based on the roar of the crowd. So I look at what Trump's doing and I'm thinking, does he know something we don't know? Obviously. Let me tell you what he also does. Kind of like the art of the deal, which I think he's done in the case of tariffs. Normally, when people are dealing, if I said, all right, Paterson, if you don't do this, I'm going to, by God, I'm going to sue you. Don't make me. And then eventually we kick it back and forth. Trump starts off, he sues you and then negotiates on settling.
Right.
He cuts right to the chase. He doesn't waste. He just basically says, here is what we're going to do now. And it's brilliant. And look, I know you're thinking I'm some kind of a Trump sycophant. I'm not. Sometimes he does things. I'm not crazy about him. But do you know what he has to do to make me yearn for the days of his predecessor? It's impossible. So I'm not in any way. But your point's well taken.
I understand. I was watching a baseball game the other night, and they were saying that this pitcher, he doesn't really throw hard enough. So what he would try to do is to throw as hard as he could, but the other team knows that, and they're like, getting all these hits off of him. So what he started doing is throwing like a curveball first, and then throwing a changeup, and then getting the count to 2 strikes, then throwing as hard as he could, which really isn't that hard, but because of the last 4 or 5 pitches that the batter saw, they were not expecting it, and it's strike 3, or they swing and miss strike 3. And I do think that sometimes going backwards actually can have some great results. In other words, like you said, sue first. Why wait until somebody confronts you and then handle the consequences later? Now, speaking of tariffs, I really liked when he came out with the tariffs, but what really kind of surprised me is when it looked like he was going to do the 90-day pause, but then he turned right around and changed his mind about that.
It's a change-up. And
then he said, yes, there goes the change-up, Right. And And it was interesting to me because I thought the tariffs were a good idea, but now I'm starting to think that they're kind of just haphazard and chaotic. And I'm just wondering, do you have any idea where this is all going? Because one of the things that's going to happen, or it's not going to happen, is we're either going to bring manufacturing back to this country or we're not. I mean, that will really, in my opinion, putting everything else aside about the president, will really be the scorecard of how his administration works. And I don't know how they're going to bring manufacturing back to this country where right now, it's done overseas. And, we had this idea to try to bring it back, and Howard Lutnick's talking about it. Whenever Howard Lutnick talks about anything, you're best off not listening to it. Because the reality is that he was talking about the screws and how much it costs to screw them into, some of these different products. The fact is, on a cell phone, the screws and how they get screwed in are about 0.5 to 1% of the energy that's taken out of the cell phone. It's really the camera. It's really other parts of the cell phone that are the most important things. And as usual, he picked the part that was least significant to champion why we're going to do the cell phones. And frankly, if we get the cell phones out of where they're being created now, they're not coming to the United States. They're going to India or Malaysia or Vietnam. What do you think?
Well, a couple of things. First, one of the reasons, speaking of the phone in particular, I'll never forget somebody, David, suggesting years ago that why China was so important was if you're a cook from Apple and you say, all right, I need a factory with 100,000 employees. Got it. Mid-management, I needed an MBA or a PhD. Got it. I want to have I got it. Not only do they have the people, but the level of expertise, the level of education, the level of proficiency, in addition to everything else. That's the part which I think is interesting. Look, the bottom line is this, politically, and I think you know a little bit about this.
Yeah.
The American public wants the president to do something. And we have felt, right or wrong, maybe it's indecipherable, maybe it's inexplicable, but we have felt that we have been just taken advantage of, and there's a word, which I can use, of what we've been via China. And we have a president who stood up and said, I'm going to do something right now. And he started off with the same thing, starts with a heavy tariff and then maybe work backwards. But right now, people love this. See, what everybody's forgetting is people say, do something.
Yes.
Do something. Who in their right mind says, don't bring jobs back? Don't undo the Rust Belt. I couldn't explain to you right now, if I had to, how the tariffs are supposed to work vis-a-vis this or what Lutnick was talking about. But the country loves what he's doing. And David, he's only been in, 75, 80 days? 5% of his term. I feel like he's been here a year.
Yeah. His 100th day will be April 29th. That's usually when they do the report card on the governors. By the way, for those who are viewing the program, I did turn my cell phone off while Lionel was talking because last week one of my guests got a phone call right in the middle of one of my incisive questions, and I decided I'm never going to let that happen again. But I think you're really onto something about this. This is an unusual person who embraces ideas that other people think are ridiculous. And I found, earlier in my career when I knew him, that he always had a thought. Sometimes it seemed crazy. Sometimes it was, seemed almost ridiculous. But he could, using a certain reasoned process, could actually make it work. Now, I know that one time that I told him I was going to do something, he told me it was a great idea. And what it was, Lionel, was the legislature did not pass the budget on time. So we come back and they close the budget deficit to $500 million, which is a lot of money, but it's really not a lot of money. Mm-hmm. So I told them, I'm not signing on to that budget until until the deficit is removed. You constitutionally can't have a budget that you sign and you owe money. This is not
it defeats
like
the purpose.
Your credit card.
Yeah, right.
So
exactly.
the legislature said, this is close enough. We're not doing another thing. So I did something that I think other governors had thought about. They came close, but they never did it. I told them if they didn't pass that budget and pass it with a balance where it's zero, that I was going to cancel all of their discretionary member items. These are grants to each legislator to give around the district. It's really like the incumbency protection program because there's no way your opponents can be handing out the kind of money you can in your district. And I told them that I'm now going to veto these bills. They had a press conference and he said, and the governor, he's not even going to read any of those bills. They're bills that help after school programs and bills that help ideas for children over the weekend and that kind of thing. And they said he has an auto pen and that's who's going to scribble his name on there. Mm-hmm. And so this red light went off in my head. I got them to bring all the bills in. We piled them up on a table just like this. They went halfway up to the ceiling. 6,509 bills. I signed each one of them. 8.5 hours. Permanently lost the use of my right hand. and I wound up on the front page, this is early July of 2010, of the New York Post, the New York Times, and the Daily News, talking about somebody in Albany finally put their foot down. And, of course, in my case, it was too late. I was leaving office. But you can go completely against the grain sometimes because my staff was... Oh, one other thing about that, Lionel. I not only vetoed the bills, I had a camera on me like there's one right now. And the TV stations were showing it. There was no sound because some of the things I said.
Did they show like lapse time?
Right, exactly. And
a clock spinning in the background like in the old 40s movies.
And
calendars.
People were watching this like he's just sitting there signing these vetoes.
Got the highest ratings of anybody during your time slot.
Oh, my goodness. So that was really, kind of what you're saying, that sometimes you've got to be a little crazy.
See, but you're looking at this from the administrative part of it. His political genius. I don't want to say if they're your Democratic Party, but what the hell is it what are they doing now? What are we doing? We have senators going over there and embracing MS-13 killers.
Well,
that's it. That's the election.
Folks, you're hearing a question asked of me by Lionel. I refuse to answer on the grounds that it might incriminate me. However, we're going to take a break. We're here on The Left versus the Right on 77 WABC with the great Lionel and the sometimes great David Paterson, and we'll be back right after this.
It's The Left versus the Right.
Your snacking routine can get a little dull. Time for a light and fit remix. Like a crunchy storm of graham cookies, caramel pearls, and dark chocolate, showering down into a smooth, creamy yogurt. Enjoy 3 light and fit remix varieties with craveable flavors and up to 120 calories and 10 grams of protein per 4.5-ounce serving. See remixyogurt.com.
We're shipping Mother's Day gifts with a rapid-fire round of questions. Ready?
Yes, my gift. Can you pack it?
Yep.
Ship it?
Yes.
Guarantee it?
Of course.
Oh, send gift baskets?
For sure.
Protect electronics? Dog-proof it? Return it if they hate it?
Yes, no, and yeah.
Are you the UPS store?
Hey, we have a winner!
Visit the upsstore.com/guarantee for full details. Most locations are independently owned. Product services, prices, and hours of operation may vary. See Center for details. The UPS Store. Visit a store today.
American Giant makes great clothing, sweatshirts, jeans, and more right here in the U.S. Visit American-Giant.com and get 20% off your first order with code STAPLE20. That's 20% off your first order at American-Giant.com, code STAPLE20.
We interrupt this program to bring you an important Wayfair message. Wayfair's got style tips for every home. This is Styles McKenzie helping you make those rooms sing. Today's style tip. When it comes to making a statement, treat bold patterns like neutrals. Go wild, like an untamed animal print area rug under a rustic farmhouse table from Wayfair.com. Fierce. This has been your Wayfair style tip to keep those interiors superior.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
It's the left versus the right. Debate. Heavyweight slugfest.
We're back with the one and the only Lionel, who can be heard on this station, WABC, 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. on Saturday morning. Is that it?
That's right. And Sunday.
2 a.m. to 6 a.m. on Sunday morning.
At 4:43 in Guam. It's a long story. Very interesting programming. It's micro dosage.
Well, I remember Lionel from the 90s right here on WABC Radio. And it's so great to have him back. And he's always controversial.
But we've been pals for a long time.
We've been long
and
pals.
you're the most sensible. But David, not to be gratuitous, but the left or the Democrats, whoever the hell these people are, they need you. Let me just say this again. When I was a kid, I don't know how old you are, but when I was a kid in the 60s growing up, the Democrats were the good guys. It was anti-war and civil rights and for this and the common, and the Republicans were the stodgy, constipated, country clubs like Barry Goldwater. Okay, and I didn't. But what happened to your party?
Well, I think a lot of what happened to the Democratic Party has a lot to do with what happened to the Republican Party. Remember that
Namely?
that John F. Kennedy nearly defeated Nixon in 1960, but then in 1964. When they're running against Lyndon Johnson, they run Barry Goldwater, who won 5 states, and he probably couldn't even name them. And I think there's an issue right now where I wouldn't say Trump narrowly defeated. It was a significant victory that he scored over the former Vice President Kamala Harris. But I think when those types of things happen, the leaders of the party are stunned in disbelief.
How?
And the loud, radical, way out members of the party start taking control, like AOC, who apparently they say she's running for president now.
But she and Bernie. Listen, I love politics. Politics is, to me, it has nothing to do with issues. It's about feeling. It's about this feeling. Remember the days of Ronald Reagan? He said, I love this guy. What does he say? I don't know. He's something about, but look at him. Ronald Reagan, the time during the State of the Union with Lenny Skutnik. Remember him? He introduced Lenny Skutnik, who dove into the gelid, icy Potomac River to save this Torjado or save this nurse who was floundering about, who was... Anyway, so
he gets to come to the State of the Union.
Yes, and he started that. And we were so happy. And the State of the Union, people ask, wasn't he supposed to address some taxing issue?
Exactly. Remember the night that the Challenger crashed and he gets up, he gives a speech that no matter who you were, if you said that wasn't one of the greatest speeches you ever heard,
how they touched
you would be lying through your teeth.
But anyway, that was visceral. And it was like, people were still like him, like, But Trump is third rail. He's buttermilk. Either you love it or you hate it. He does. Here's my question. Do the Trump haters, do the TDS sufferers hate him more than the pro-Trump MAGA people love him? if the absolute value in terms of magnitude.
Right.
What is greater? And I submit to you that he is, when he leaves, and we're going to miss him, we're going to say, you just saw something that was Woodstock, vaudeville, professional wrestling, everything rolled up. You will never see this again. This is a man who when in your life did you ever say, honey, turn on the TV.
Right.
Jimmy Carter's got a rally. People are waiting 4 days.
Now, what about this, Lionel? The only individual who I thought had the same kind of charisma, could make you hate him and like him at the same time, was Muhammad Ali.
Well, especially during his during his refusal to serve or the draft out or whatever.
Yeah.
Because even then, see, and you bring up a good point. The best thing you can do is to have your detractors hate you because they secretly admire what you're doing. Because there isn't one person who doesn't secretly, Democrat, who says, God, I wish we had somebody like this. And the greatest cosmic lying was when, and listen, I don't want to make too much, I really don't like making fun of Joe Biden's senescence or decrepitude or whatever it is. Because let's face it, a lot of us right now, that's one thing. But he forced us. And I turned to the Democratic Party and say, what are you doing? For the love of God, get this man off. So here's what we're going to do. We brought a woman in who makes him look like Niels Bohr. What were you thinking? And Trump must be thinking, they're sandbagging me. They can't be serious with this. They can't be serious. And then everybody in your left meet, not yours, everybody from oh God, you name it. He's sharp as a tack. He is sharp as a tack. George Clooney, and I mean, I was shocked, and the Democrats were thinking, do we even have a chance here? And you brought up this logorrheic. I love it. Her logorrhea is called verbal incontinence. That's what she had. And I'm thinking to myself, and so I ask you, what were you thinking? Gavin Newsom would have been deadly. I thought for sure they were going to do this. What is the matter with you? Can you ever recover? And you're going to bring in AOC and Bernie? Is Bernie who cried last time? Bernie who let down all the young people till he threatened his wife with prosecution?
Well,
oh my God.
First of all, for all of you listening in and watching, only Lionel could bring up the man who shared the Nobel Prize for Physics in 1922, Niels Bohr,
and juxtaposed,
who shared it with Albert Einstein. Only here on WABC could we bring a guest on that would have that major and historical reference. But I'll tell you, I think what it is that the Democratic Party, and I'm still a registered Democrat,
that's okay. Still love you.
Is in like deep consequence. There's no idea of how to react to things except to fight them. Now, I will say this. James Carville, a couple of weeks ago on one of those Saturday morning programs, not the Sunday ones, said that he thought the Democrats should just lie down, let the Republicans run the country, and either things will work out for them or it won't. But this whole idea of attacking everything they do every day is not working. Now, I don't know how long his plan would last before there were any types of results. But I certainly felt when President Trump came in that I'm not going to get up every chance I get and just trash him, and have found myself relatively willing to play out some of these scenarios, like with the tariffs, which I think that what the tariffs really should be is a way to direct economic policy. That they shouldn't be, almost like a lottery that people are playing. And right now, I think that if we want to bring jobs back to this country and we want to bring manufacturing back to this country, the government itself is going to have to invest in tax credits for people who would invest in going out and start building things, and also to make sure that there's a workforce that is competitive and working toward something. That's how you bring back manufacturing. I feel, Lionel, that the White House either is not saying or doesn't have a clue of how they would bring manufacturing back, and that could be a big problem.
Well,
what do you think?
Most people right now, I would tell the president, you could do anything. You could do a war dance. You could wear a silly hat. You could come out with a cape and a pointy hat with a magic wand and go up to the lights and go, woo! And that will be better than what those people did in the prior administration. But here's the thing. I want to know more about, I'm thinking midterms. I want to be the secret guy at the White House who's in a room on the side who says, midterms. Think midterms.
Right.
What are you telling people? And I would give them one thing. I think it was Gore Vidal one time, who was it, said that when he ran for Congress, Eleanor Roosevelt, we're talking about Gore Vidal, Eleanor Roosevelt, said 3 things. Only do 3 things. And I would take one step further. If you can't fit them on a bumper sticker, I would just say one thing. Do you want your daughter being manhandled by some man walking around nude in her locker room or wrestling with her? If you do, vote Democratic. And they're going to sit down and say, that will get everybody's attention. Now,
yes.
You're going to think to yourself, you're going to say, this, because you're smart and you've been to Albany and you know this. I'm a common guy. I want to go. I'm for the guy who gets excited about the new McRib. That's what I want to do.
The McRib?
Every now and then there's some cyclical thing about the McRib. But the point is, right now, Sarah Huckabee Sanders said, this isn't about left or right. It's about normal versus crazy. There's going to be right now.
Well, she got that right.
Boy, George Soros is now anybody, not my president. Not my president. Quick story. One time, years ago, we came out of a Union Square, whatever, and there were these people were kind of doing the miniaturized version of the Speaker's Corner, whatever, in London. In any event, they had a guy with a microphone. And I was with some friends, and I said, let me show you what I'm doing. I said, do you mind if I talk into that? Because I'm a professional. I said, yes. So I got this microphone. There were people around there, and I said, I'm tired of this, and you're tired of this. And the problem is the people who are in charge, they don't care about us. Am I right? Yes. I had them frothing. I never said anything.
You never mentioned one issue.
I never mentioned. But I got right down into the core. And there's something that people are feeling. These people are crazy. There's something that they're after. Think about this. If I said, here is a United States Senator going to a foreign country to beg and see how a MS-13, whose name is Kilmar, pun, you decide,
right.
to see how he's doing as they sip margaritas in a resort when, I mean, and the Democrats are saying this is fantastic. I can't write this better. I can't write how people are saying we care more. We want this person back. Explain that one to me. This is the one I don't understand.
So, Lionel, let's go back to midterms. You're the midterm guy in the White House. We've anointed you. We called the White House. They said, okay, they'll try it for a week.
Right.
And so when you leave here, you can go right down to Washington. But what is it that the president has to avoid before he loses perhaps the House? I don't think he'd lose the Senate.
Well, first thing is, of course, the MAGA, I hate that sound. Anyway, but this MAGA and Doge, people loved it. I don't know where Elon's going now, but turn it up. Even though the amount of monies that were actually saved were so de minimis. I mean, the drop in the bucket, it didn't matter. When Elon said, did you realize there were 12,000 people over the age of 190 who were saying, what? That's all they cared about. They don't. You can keep your tariffs. Keep up the momentum, number one, of MAGA or MAJ, which is a kind of a version, it's like a MAJ, like a truncation of the two. But anyway, keep up this momentum. But also remember that these other people are crazy. And here is my message. You may not like me. You may hate me. But those people are going to kill you. They're going to kill the Constitution. They're going to kill your dreams. I don't know what they're about. I don't know where they're. They seem normal. Nancy Pelosi seems normal, but they're not. That's it. I want to scare people. Status quo, perhaps. Vote by intimidation. I don't care.
I just wonder how long this kind of internecine feud between the parties is going to take, or what it would actually take to bring them together. There was a certain amount of unity after September 11th, but I don't think it lasted that long.
Oh, stop it. Come on. What did we bring up World War II next to Victory Gardens?
Yeah.
When you're dating yourself? That was so easy. Put it this way. All I know is that was, in the classic case of professional wrestling, the Greek drama, babyface versus heel, good guy, bad guy, everybody got it. Everybody got it. But there is something going on here which is even more frightening. There was a great show on TV years ago called SCTV. I think it was better than SNL, Second City Television. And there was There was this one guy running for mayor, Vic Hedges or whatever it was, Joe Flaherty's character. And I'll never forget, he was like a criminal. But his motto was he was running for mayor. And I thought, if ever I ran for office, this would be my saying, my motto. And he said, Vic Hedges, sure he's crazy, but what if he's right? And I'm telling you, there's something about Trump. This is a guy who said, you may hate him, but you need him. It's like the Jack Nicholson thing. You're going to need me walking that wall. You're going to need me. You may curse me now, but you need me. While you're out there, marching in these, what is it, this week? Or we had the Soros marches. This indiscriminate nonsense, this blather. You need Trump. That's the message. And people will say, and by the way, go back to the black barbers in the Bronx, go back to the Amish. He had a coalition of people I never thought. I saw more MAGA hats from people that I never thought. He's got to make sure that momentum does not recede in the least, and he can do it.
Wow.
With your help, David. Your help.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm going to need a couple of minutes to think about that, so I think what we'll do at this point is take a little break, hear from some of our sponsors, and we will come back to finish up with Lionel. Remember that after this program at 5 o'clock, Vinny Meduno will be here to play music for an hour, and then Cousin Brucey will be on at 6 o'clock. And then at 7 o'clock, Lionel and I are going to come back and talk all night so that none of you can go out and have a good time. We'll be right back.
It's the left versus the right. It's the left versus the right. Debate. Heavyweight slugfest.
It's the left versus the right. Or it's the Lionel versus all of society. And he has been kind enough to join us today. Lionel, you're going to have to come back because I think we're just getting warmed up.
I love this, but this is not, we're not really arguing. See, one thing that you and I think we have, there's this important thing to be empathic. You understand the way the right, let's just use these shortcuts. I understand the way the left feels. I understand the way the right feels. I understand where women are worried about losing their abortion rights, even though Trump has done nothing to even so much as risk or threaten the right. But I understand it. And I understand the feeling that people have. It might be misdirected, but that's empathy. Not sympathy, empathy. I can put myself in your position. And that, by the way, I think is critical for politics. So with the exception of gender dysmorphia, that's a new one on me because that one I didn't see coming. I did. Remember a while back, David, when all of a sudden they said, right when Trump was over here, they said, we need to have same-sex bathrooms. I'm saying, where did this come from?
Wow.
Where is it? And then that was like, it's a hint. Get ready. Because what they do is they put the toe in the water, and the next thing you know, it's an avalanche. It's like that thread on your sweater. You pull it, and it just disintegrates. They started this, and I never understood where was the constituency for same-sex bathrooms. That was the COVID knocked this world, we lost our soul in that, our sense of empowerment, and it was like a weird form of almost like a biomedical tyranny or martial law or something. Anyway, thank God that was over with. But we've been through a lot, and we're kind of knocked off. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
We're coming out of a coma, and we're thinking, well, I'm feeling okay. This arm's a little weird, and we're kind of finding our way around. And I hope we can put that behind us.
By the way, Lionel, I want you to write this down. I am against the bathrooms with
same sex or gender.
Open bathrooms.
Yeah.
Because if they were open, I wouldn't see any more than I do now.
But see here, but just I always thought as an aside, if I ran for office, one thing I would do to get that women's vote, I said, I have one thing on my agenda. You vote for me, and I'm going to make sure that there is the Lionel 3-1 or 2-1 or whatever stall rule. These poor ladies have to go to a stall. We, by virtue of we're far more, dare I say, pardon the pun, fluid in our venues of micturition. Okay, however, these poor women, there should be as many stalls as there are urinals. Okay, I think people would say that makes sense. That's as far as I would go. Because let's face it, if you've ever been to a Giants game, people are coming in and out. Who cares? I don't even know. I'm not checking anybody out. But the point is, out of all the things available, somebody said, let's start with that first.
So it's Holy Saturday, and it is now going to be, I believe, 10 days before President Trump hits his 100th day in office. Your sense of how the first 100 days have gone?
Magnificently. A blur.
And I noticed accent on the mag.
Yeah, right. Magnificently, indeed. Very punny. I'm going to put you in the penitentiary, my friend.
Oh, the penitentiary?
Yeah. I think he has been. Let me see if I can. Remember was it the Maxell cassette tape commercial where the guy was sitting in a chair kind of like this, and the speakers and the wind, I think it was Maxell for those kids it was a cassette tape. Or imagine sticking your head out of a window. You're going about 90 miles an hour. That's what the first 100 days have been. It's been wild. It's been wild.
Something happens every day.
Every single day. And a man who loves it, and also, let me explain something. Have you ever had, and what's great about being in the city, do you have any, dare I say, foreign friends from other countries who say, we love Trump? That's my generic foreign accent. They love him.
I know a few.
Especially countries that know what totalitarian regimes are like, especially when they know what toughness is. They appreciate it. They love him. They say now, I never forget, somebody said one time, he goes, now that's the America we know. I like that. I thought, because there's something about that. You have to sometimes go elsewhere. And I think, for somebody that he does it, this guy he's an enigma. He's wrapped in a riddle. Here's a guy who says, I think I'm going to go into TV. So he does. And he has the number one spot for 16 years.
The Apprentice, yeah.
Blows this away. Then he says, I think I'm gonna run for office. City council? No. School board? No. County commission? No. Assembly? No. Senate? No. President?
You know what, Lionel? He actually wanted to run for governor in 2014. And this was told to me by the chair of the Republican Party of the state, Ed Cox. He went to Ed Cox, and Ed Cox showed him all the reasons he would lose. And apparently he said to Ed Cox, then if that's the case, then I might as well just run for president. And Ed Cox said, which should now be legendary and inscribed somewhere, well, it would work out a lot better that way. And it did.
But it goes to show you, what does it take to be the president? What is it? Let me go. Let's look back a little bit. There was a time, we always look at FDR, who I think was just, I don't even know if, you talk about the absolute value, the magnitude of that man.
And he was a president who, like Trump, had programs and plans, because the year that he came in, the inauguration day was March 4th. It had always been back, it was March 4th, and that was the last year that the president was inaugurated in March. He had about 40 days worth of plans, and he did the same thing Trump did. Trump, although Roosevelt did 40 days, Trump has done like 4 months.
40 minutes, right. But think about what he did too. He was a man who was patrician. Nobody even knows what that means. With Eller, hello, and they loved him. And he said, yesterday, and this was, you asked the guy, Mr. President, guys in the Bowery, I'm doing a terrible imitation, they loved him. So what did he do? He did the fireside chat. And he said, I'm going to bring radio. And they said, sir, you can't do that. That's beneath you. The hell I can't. And he did it. Now, let's go back even before that. Abraham Lincoln actually took pictures. They said, you can't put pictures. And he said, I'm going to run. You can't sully the office. You don't run for office. We just put our names on. He goes, the hell? And little things, little tweaks, little things that he did. The Don Hewitt, the Kennedy-Nixon debate. There were moments. Mr. Governor, I'm telling you that we're going to look back and we're going to say that what Trump did was, words are, what is the word for it? It was an epic. It was monumental. It was inane. It was colossal. Brobdingnagian. What he did something. I used to watch his rallies, and I'm saying, what is he doing that's so plays? I'm proud to be an American, and people are crying. They love him. There's this connection that he had. Have you ever asked yourself, why were the Beatles that good? Were they really that good? Well, was it the timing? Well, weren't Dave Clark fight? Well, I don't know why. Why is macaroni and cheese so great? I don't know. It just is. That's Trump. He's the Beatles. He's macaroni and cheese. He just did it. And whenever there was a debate, didn't you just say, we're not? How many bars do you think said, hey, Jerry, turn the Knicks game off. The presidential debate is on.
Yeah.
Whoever did that? It's like the O.J. trial where we're talking about blood splatter evidence. All of a sudden, people got into that. It was transformational what he did.
I'm going to tell you a story about him. So I become state senator in 1985. I represent the Upper West Side and Harlem. Around, I'd say in the early 90s, Trump decides he's going to build one of his Trump towers on the West Side. One of the problems that we had in my district was that the sewage treatment plant was overloaded, and it was in Harlem, and it was just dangerous. The levels of cancer went up in the area and that kind of thing. And so Trump does this thing. So I must have made some comment in the media about how terrible that was. And he calls my office and invites me to come down and talk to him. So I go down to talk to him. And, at first it was, pretty loose. We're just carrying on. And then the O.J. trial was kind of around then. So we talked about that. And then he says, listen, you're killing the city. You're killing the city. We could be doing a lot of things around here. And you're up here blocking this. Do you know what this could do to revenues and blah, 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 that kind of thing? So I said to him, you know what, Donald? I don't care. He said, what? I said, I don't care. People are dying from the atmosphere north of 96th Street, and all you're worried about is putting up buildings. So I just want you to know that I respect what you're trying to do, but I don't care. So I leave, and maybe about a month later, I'm at some event, and he's there with Ivanka, his daughter. He introduces me to Ivanka, and he says, hey, listen, don't get in an argument with this guy. And I realized that he actually admired that I had no way to stop him from doing it.
Right.
But just the fact that I said it, it rang with him. And I think that was actually what his success has been.
You know, it's funny you say that on a kind of a tangential note. You said, I don't care. My hashtag, this is not what we're talking about, but I'm very, very afraid of a couple of things. The existential threat that affects, that faces humanity is AI and AGI, which we'll talk about some other time. It's worse than anything you can imagine. But we are living in a world of intolerance and censorship. David, do you remember the time, you don't mind if I call you David, do you?
After the show.
Because Marlene would make no sense. Anyway, but do you know that, remember when the Anarchist Cookbook came out and they said, you can't publish 1971? Supreme Court said, of course you can.
I remember that.
Remember when we had Alice Cooper and you had this and you had and it was all my life and that you can't do this. This is going to cause drugs and this and this music. And my hashtag is going to be, so what? Did you hear what David Paterson said? So what? He's entitled to that. It's what he said was hateful. So what? Turn him off. It was misinformation, disinformation, data information. So what? That's a version of I don't care.
You know, it's so funny you bring something. You bring up things that are just the Anarchist Cookbook.
Yeah.
This friend of mine and I, we didn't really know what it was about. We went in this bookstore and we asked the owner, do you have the Anarchist Cookbook? Don't have it, won't carry it. And I was like, okay, well.
And you said, I got to have that.
Yeah, exactly.
That was the thing when they told me, when they said, you can, in the 7th or 8th grade, there was a group called Blood Rock. The song, it was Blood Rock. It was not metal. It was about death and plane crashes, and there was a song called DOA, and my mother said, what are you listening to that for? And I said, I gotta have it, because that was part of the rebellion. But the bottom line is, so what? We are going to lose the ability to speak, and it's not going to be the thought police, my friend. It's going to be the thought vigilantes, the citizens, the people who decide, we don't like what you're saying. We don't like the intimations, the insinuations, what you're saying about gays or women or whatever. We've lost our mind. And that is the left. That is a province. I thought the left was liberal and free speech. What the hell happened to you people?
I think it's been taken over by anger, frustration.
And fear.
And a limited sense of scope. So, you know, what I think people should be thinking about is, this is how it's going now. Things might be going differently in 6 or 7 years. You know, there are cycles, particularly in the political arena. And I think that's part of the actual problem. Now, our time is how much we got here?
Plenty of time.
Plenty of time. One more minute of Lionel. Lionel, your closing statement.
Speaking of this, you're going to love this, and I'm going to say this to you, and you're going to. I had the honor one time of opening up for Robert Klein, Dick Gregory, and Mort Saul.
Wow.
Do you and I sat with Dick Gregory and Mort Saul just backstage and listened to what they were about and through. And I say, who is that today? Who is our Dick Gregory? Who is our Mort Saul? Mort Saul, this was the most, forget pre-Carlin, pre-Lenny Bruce. We need brilliant, edgy, smart, but dangerous commentary. And that's why I'm here, my friend.
That's right. And we just got it from Lionel here on the left versus the right. I'm sure by the end of this show, you will not know which direction is left or right. Thank you for joining us.